Greetings from the Galaxy far, far away. This is the Legacy of Star Wars podcast brought to you by Fandom Empire. I am your host, Johnny V, and it is a pleasure to be here with you guys on this fine, wonderful Tuesday evening if you're watching live or whenever you happen to be watching us. We got well, it's a Tuesday night. It's the new year. It's first show of 2024. And as tends to happen on Tuesday nights for the last several months, they decided to just drop a steaming pile of news on our doorstep. So if you were here for the watch along for Empire, it's next week because there was just too much stuff to talk about this week that we pushed that back by a week. But joining me, as always, of course, are my two co-hosts and colleagues. Wow, you're underneath me now, so I gotta figure this out again. Because usually I'm at the sides here, so it's like right here. Sean, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing, man. I'm doing. Is it spring yet? Yeah, it's spring. No. Oh shit. Happy holiday or happy belated holidays to everybody out there. Hopefully, you guys had a fantastic holiday season and stayed safe, and that Santa was kind to all of you out there. Also, shout out to Star Wars Santa. Love what he does over there on his channel. Yeah, it's man, it's just one of those days where, like, I literally said to Jade this morning, I'm like, well, we're basically all set for the show today. I have everything. I just got to find the iPad and we're good to go. And then today happened. And you just sort of throw whatever notes you had planned out the window because, today happened and there's lots to get to.
There really, truly is. We'll get to that all soon enough. Over here on the other side, over here, Randy, how you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. Just still trying to wrap my head around the fact that it's 2024. But and you guys, you're talking about spring. I mean, it was like 60 today, but of course, Tropical Storm Finn decided to grace us with his presence, and it's just been raining cats and dogs essentially. So hopefully, everything stays on and there's no issues, since we got a flood watch until I think 1 a.m. So
60. That's cute. I'm dealing with sub 40.
Hey, I'm. You know what? I like cold temperatures. I don't mind it. I'm from New York, so I'm used to that sort of stuff. Here, it's like snow can show up any day now, and it really never does. So
I will take the cold over the heat, though. I will. That's always been my stance. I can put on more clothes. I can't take off once I'm at the skin. That's it. Like that's
Yep. I'm with you.
But yeah, so we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about tonight. But of course, you guys enjoy the content. If you guys enjoy the show, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button / notification bell, leave a comment, leave a like, leave all those things to help us defeat the evil algorithm. And if you're looking for additional content, head on over to the Fandom Empire platform on Patreon over at patreon.com/Fandom Empire for exclusive content that you can only get available to any of the tiers over there over on Patreon. So, guys, it's a new year. It's 2024. Sean, why don't you tell all of our lovely viewers what we have in store for them over the next calendar year?
Well, a lot of it is going to be TBD based on the content that we get, right? So, like, things need to not get delayed. But I thought we kicked this little new show off really before what was the first official episode over several weeks of content with Star Wars Ahsoka, which we will talk about later in the episode. By the way, the most like I don't know. I'll get to it when it comes up. But the Ahsoka announcement today, which wasn't really an announcement, but is an announcement, was just kind of handled weird. But we have the Acolyte coming out, which I'm stoked for. Cannot wait. Sounds like May. We'll see if they hit it or not. And then you have Skeleton Crew coming out this year. Sounds like very, very late this year, like probably holiday this year. meaning Christmas. And then Tales of the Jedi is another one I definitely want to do. And that could drop who knows when. So you're looking at, episodic reviews, maybe even some watch-alongs for some. We'll see. For the channel for the rest of the year, but we're also going to be doing watch party / commentaries once a month as it is. So next week will be The Empire Strikes Back. We get into February where we do Return of the Jedi. March is The Phantom Menace. April is Attack of the Clones. We know Johnny cannot wait for that one. I mean, to be fair, I like doing watch parties with people that just don't praise things endlessly, because I think it creates discussion. You can defend something or attack something or whatever. And then Revenge of the Sith in May. And I'm just curious, is May the 4th on a Tuesday?
We checked. I don't think so.
No.
I think it's a Monday.
You're right. So it'd be sometime in May anyways. Revenge of the Sith, and then TBD the rest of the way. But we'll be doing one watch along a month of some sort. So yeah, if you guys have any additional ideas that you might have for us to cover, or any content you want to see, let us know.
I think as I'm just looking at my calendar, I think this might be a time where in May we do a special Monday episode because Revenge of the 6th.
Oh yeah, I don't think Dean would mind flip-flopping days with our lovely Tonight in Haddonfield show, which, by the way, new episode of that last night. Shameless promotion here. Self-promotion. Definitely check it out. The Halloween project that could return. Randy, remind me I need to talk to you about that.
All right.
But yeah.
We got lots of great stuff in store for you guys over this calendar year. Most of it, like we said, it's a big year for content. So they're definitely going to keep pumping out things for us to talk about. Of course, that leads us into the HoloNet, where, like I said, they dropped a big steaming pile of news on us. So let's jump right in with the big topic of the day, of course. We talked about it briefly before the new year as a possibility, something that might happen. It has been officially confirmed that the Mandalorian and Grogu are making the jump from the small screen Disney Plus experience to the big screen experience. Has, of course, been officially confirmed by, everyone. As you can see, this is an official StarWars.com article. The film is set to come to movie theaters, directed by Jon Favreau, produced by Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, and Dave Filoni, of course. The Mandalorian and Grogu is set to go into production in 2024. Favreau is quoted saying, "I have loved telling stories set in the rich world that George Lucas created. The prospect of bringing the Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting." Favreau and Filoni have ushered into Star Wars two new and beloved characters, and this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen, Kathleen Kennedy added. Gentlemen, we talked about this earlier in the year, at the end of last year, where this was a possibility. Now it is official. It's come to fruition. Guys, how do you feel about this? Randy, we'll start with you.
So there's that part of me that's like excited. There's also that part of me that's kind of like, do we really want to go this route? But knowing that Filoni, is essentially head of creative and things like that, and gets to have final say on things. I'm not as pessimistic as I could be. I'm just worried that unless the story and the script are really tight and flow really well, that it's just, are we going to get a 2-hour movie? Are we going to get a 90-minute movie? Is it going to be 2.5 hours? And because, given what we'd seen just in the Mandalorian series in general, the time's always jumped around and it just never, obviously if you probably add everything up, it put maybe 3 or 4 hours tops if you're lucky for an entire season, maybe 3. So it's not like it's out of the question to turn an entire season into a movie. I just am more concerned about the story and the pacing of it.
Yeah, those are definitely some valid concerns. Sean, what about you? It's official. What do you think?
You caught me mid-ship, man. So give me a moment.
The awkward moment, snacking during a live show. See, you never know when the host is going to throw it to you. There've been many times in our history where you wait until
And we're back from that regularly scheduled commercial break. Anyway, apologies. No, I honestly I thought Randy was going to go on a lot longer than that. So I could tell he was wrapping up there. I'm like, shit, no, Randy. Starting off New Year well. I'm the one that looks like an idiot first. So there's really good stuff here, in my opinion. And then when you dig a little deeper, there's some not so good stuff here. This comes on the heels of a week full of controversy surrounding the director of the Rey movie and comments that not only she had made recently, but had made 8 years ago. Look, Star Wars is a divided fan base. A lot of fan bases in fandom are divided, but Star Wars, the rift isn't as large as it was, say, after The Last Jedi came out, or even after The Rise of Skywalker came out, but it's still large. It's larger than anything we had ever seen prior to the sequel trilogy, and I just think you don't need to fucking... It's kind of like we're in a group chat together today, and this isn't Star Wars related, but I said the Tony Khan thing. I agreed with everything Tony Khan, AEW owner. For those that don't know, AEW is a wrestling company. Not that kind of wrestling, sickos, but professional wrestling. And anyway, he made great points online today that I agree with, but I also think he's the owner, and you can't. You don't pour gasoline on a fire, is basically what I'm trying to get at. And what is it? Charmaine Obey Chinoy is the director of the Rey movie, which was supposed to be that first movie we get. Now there's some question on when we're going to get it, because it sounds like the Filoni movie might move in front of it. And we'll get to that shortly. That's where we're at. And she had done a documentary, and some very some parts of the internet anyways view her as a man-hater. I kind of roll my eyes at that, right? And I think when you dig deeper into the documentaries that she did, she definitely is... I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. She's definitely not afraid to say how she feels. Freedom of speech is a great thing, but I think when you're on the heels of what was supposed to be the beginning of production this year on your Rey movie, and then before you have a chance to say anything positive, the first official statement that comes out of your mouth for the movie since Star Wars Celebration is, it's about time we have a woman put their creative touch on this universe. And people are sitting there going, Marsha Lucas literally helped edit Star Wars A New Hope. Wouldn't have gotten the movie the way that you got it if it wasn't for her. You have Bryce Dallas Howard, who shaped several episodes now of the Mandoverse, and so many others. It just seems like a really stupid fucking thing to say. And I think, I don't know if, we're talking about them possibly dismissing her or anything. I don't think it's going to get that crazy. But you just didn't need to do it. You don't need to make that statement. You don't talk about how excited you are for the movie and Rey and new characters and telling a story set a decade and a half after the Rise of Skywalker. But the second you do that, you fuel all the idiots online. And then instead of them attacking you, which they do, they also attack the other side of the fan base. And I saw Force Center today, Ken Knapsack, and what they do over there. They're probably some of the most down to earth Star Wars podcasters I have ever listened to in, since I've started listening to Star Wars podcasts. I know I'm going on here a bit, guys, but even Jennifer Landon there said my dad or her dad had called her and was like, "What's the deal with this new Star Wars movie? I didn't even know there would be one." Her dad didn't know there was going to be a Star Wars movie, a new one, until all this bullshit drama came out online. Again, instead of talking about fantastic stories set in a galaxy far, far away, we're talking about bullshit and stupid political agendas. It's dumb. I'm sorry, it just is. And I know we're not going to escape that in today's day and age, but it cannot be the first fucking thing that you talk about. It cannot. You want to talk about it halfway through a press tour or something? Awesome. Great. Address it. But build up the movie. Build up the characters. Build up the story that you guys are working on. And she chose not to do that. And it lit the internet on fire and got them a bunch of backlash. And so now the talk, as of today, fellas, is we might have that movie backed up severely to a point. Stephen Knight now might be out. That is something that Making Star Wars didn't put it out there as a report, but simply suggested that he would not be surprised if Stephen Knight is out. And to this point, Stephen Knight has not turned in any work. So while there's great news with the Mandalorian and Grogu, which I think is a terrible fucking title, by the way, and I hope they change that. It's fantastic because I really do think like something horrifically wrong would have to happen for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to not get this movie into cinemas when it's supposed to be in there. Like it really would. I think they will get the movie out there. How good it'll be, I have no fucking idea. And we'll dive into in a little bit here about what their intentions are, because it turns out, this is about more than one movie. Like our thumbnail title said, like we're not just talking about the Mandalorian movie. We're talking about a report out there today that this is the first of 3 movies. And we'll get to that in a bit. But fellas, what's your take on... Sorry, Johnny, I kind of took the reins there for a second, but what's your take on trying to, like, you're trying to build up Star Wars again to a point where it can be successful in the cinema, and that shit happens. Like, where do you fall with it, Johnny, then Randy?
I mean, it's a fine example of the dumpster fire that is social media. Because it's a statement that is otherwise unoffensive. It's normal. It's it's about time a female voice. Great, fine. Actually reading the quote in Variety is a relatively normal statement for the first female, director to say about a film franchise. Great. It's when every other mouth breather runs with that and turns it into something more than what it is that it becomes this chaotic fire. Like, taking a moment of celebration for the first female director in the Star Wars franchise of a cinematic film and turning it into this is just, it's one side taking a moment of happy and turning it into so much more than that, and it's one of those things where if this was still the area where Variety was purely a magazine and this is appearing in print in a month, 2 months, 3 months, nobody cares. But because it's fresh off the announcement, it's fresh off of everything else, it's, every person with a voice and an X account can put their opinion out there. And let's be honest, there are far too many people whose opinions are, I'm a faceless nobody behind a keyboard. I can say anything. And, and that's where we are, like
I resent that. I have a face. Thank you.
Yes, but you're also, you're in that population of people who use Twitter and Facebook as, you don't say anything on there you wouldn't actually say, and there's a very large population of people who are the exact opposite, You know, if you put 90% of the people who are complaining about this comment in a physical room, half of them would be like, oh my God, there's people here, I'm scared. And the other half would be like, oh, I didn't say that. I would never say such a thing. It's, you know, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's tabloid journalism at its finest, and everyone is now a tabloid journalist because of social media. You know, so it is what it is. I don't care. Just show me the product, you know? Like, I don't care.
See, I think the thing here is now it's like, if you want to look at, I don't even know how you could even really spin this in a positive light. I just feel like it's like, did you not do any of your research? Did you not look into Star Wars as a whole? You know, if memory serves me correctly, didn't Deborah Chow direct the entire series of Obi-Wan, every single episode? So it's like, how can you say that a woman hasn't had, put her own touch or spin in the world of Star Wars? It's an entire series that one person got to do, but she also got to direct some episodes of Mandalorian along with Bryce Dallas Howard. It's not like they've shied away from giving women the opportunity to share their vision for Star Wars. So to make that comment, obviously, I almost feel like it's just to get clicks, but also it's like, you have to set this ridiculous expectation for yourself to live up to exactly what you're trying to say you're going to do. And if you don't, then you get buried even more. And I agree with you, Johnny. Social media just, it sucks. It's one of those things where you're right. It's these faceless people behind a keyboard who are just going to say the randomest shit that comes to mind, because in a normal all-around conversational situation, they're not going to say it. You know, it's why the movie Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, when those guys go on tour and pretty much beat the shit out of everybody who made comments about Blunt Man and Chronic. I mean, that's what all of us would love to be able to do for anybody who's basically nothing but an internet troll. But it's, in this case, you're talking about one of the biggest fandoms out there, and we're already divided it enough as it is as a fandom to have someone do this. Now what is that going to do for the movie? What kind of PR nightmare could that potentially cause when that's going to come up as the movie's getting close to release, and there's going to be those interviews and it's going to be brought up? And I don't know, it's negative publicity you don't want. We're trying to bring the fans back together. We're trying to get everybody to at least be on some sort of a same page. Now you're going to try to divide them even further with comments like that, which shows that she doesn't take the time to really pay attention to the history of Star Wars, because Star Wars has a rich history of like strong female characters and things like that. So I don't understand how you can make the comment like that when we've seen through the years that women have played a very crucial role in Star Wars as a whole, from production to story to characters to, I don't know. It's frustrating, but like Johnny says, it is what it is at this point. Let's see what she puts out.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, at this point, if she even gets to put it out, like the way track record is gone, and now there's rumor, well, I shouldn't say rumors, but the bit that Jason had put out there on Making Star Wars today, again, just mentioned in passing that he wouldn't be surprised if Knight is off the project. So, but he might not be. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Trying to focus on like the aspect of this that is positive now for a little bit. Simply, we're getting a Star Wars movie. One of my favorite things that I've done in the last several years is Johnny and I, along with others, have gone to see it opening night. I love the idea of going to see another Star Wars movie opening night. I love the idea of potentially doing it when it's not fucking freezing and we don't have to brave a snowstorm to get there. That excites me. I'm excited at the possibility of a movie. When you look at what it could be, the article I just pulled up there, I'm not going to keep it up there, but essentially, the plan seems to be they're going to do the Mando movie, which is not the same as the Filoni movie, and that the Filoni movie will in fact be a follow-up to the Mando movie. So you have two, and then Making Star Wars put out there today that he had heard now that it's going to be a trilogy. And we'll see what happens. It would make sense. You already have two slated there. Trilogies work with Star Wars, in my opinion. I think it's good to have some level of expectation in terms of the story. But I think the thing that excites me here, guys, is this now gives you the opportunity to properly utilize Thrawn on the big screen. I would like to think that the ending to this movie might not be the most happy ending we've ever seen. And I would think that Thrawn and the Imperials will have a role to play in this movie. Maybe not as the villain of the movie or whatever, but I think that's how you set up the next chapter. The question is, where does Ahsoka 2 fall in all this, which we now know is in active development. So I'm excited at the prospect. I'm excited at, just to see a new Star Wars movie on the big screen. Whether we like it or not, that's another story. But I still like the excitement leading up to one. Johnny, how about you, man? We've seen a bunch of these things together. And you got to know that, and I hope people are prepared for this, there's a good chance in this movie there's going to be, I'm not saying like a full-on recap, but like there's going to be some early parts of this movie that catch up the general audience viewer of the story that we're in. Because the movie's not going to be made to go to theaters, and you're not going to be forced to have seen Mando Season 1, Mando Season 2, Mando Season 3, Book of Boba Fett, and whatever else. You'll be able to go see this Mando movie and get it, but there'll be added, obviously, incentive if you have seen those series. How do you think that stuff shapes out, Johnny?
Well, I don't think that's as big a deal as people think it is, because Star Wars already has a tried and true tested method by way they can recap events of the galaxy. It's called the crawl. Anyone expecting anything else is going to be sadly mistaken. There's going to be a crawl, and it is going to be exactly that. It's going to be the brief, visual recap of everything that happens. We're not going to be getting scenes from these series unless they do something drastically different, which in theory they certainly could, but I don't see that happening. So I think it's safe to say we just get the traditional Star Wars crawl, and it recaps the major events that lead us up to this film. And it will sort of be expected that people will watch the series. Like, that's sort of a thing, like if you, and they'll push it that way. If you want to understand more of this, watch the series, because it's multi-level marketing at its finest. To fully understand this film, you must subscribe to Disney Plus and watch these series. Put more money in my pocket, please. So it's I'm fine with that, because that's the nature of the system we currently exist in, as far as this sort of multi-platform universal experience is. You're expected to experience all of the different levels of this to fully understand and enjoy the things going on. It's no different than the crossovers of old, in series. Like, the prime example, I guess, is the if you look at NBC, and they've got the One Chicago universe. They do their big crossover every year with all three of the Chicago series. So if you only watch one of those series, you're not going to know who half of these characters are, but you'll be able to understand within the context of that what's going on. So, but you're expected to watch the other two parts, the other two series, for that particular, special experience. It's the same thing. They'll give you the brief recap to explain what's happening, but you're not going to know who these characters are if you don't watch the other series. So it's the same thing, only it's, I don't want to say on a grander scale, but it sort of is. It's watch a movie, but to fully experience it, you need to watch the other things. But here's a brief little crawl of 3 minutes or less to tell you what's happening in this universe now.
You're the first person I've heard reference the crawl today, because like it's the perfect use for it in terms of this movie. In terms of catching up the average moviegoer, it's just going to be like, oh, it's a new Star Wars movie. Let's check it out. It's going to be great for them because whether people believe it or not, there's a lot of the fan base that haven't watched the TV stuff. Just like there's an even bigger part of the fan base that hadn't watched the cartoons, and an even greater part of the fan base that don't play video games or read books. So the crawl is important, and if you utilize those 3 paragraphs properly, it could be very effective.
I also expect that as we get closer to this release date, Disney will be smart and they will air select episodes on ABC of The Mandalorian, so that people do get to see Grogu, so that people do get to see, The Mandalorian, but specifically Grogu and The Mandalorian. So I think they'll air some of those episodes on ABC in the build-up as well, just to sort of push that further. They may even go as far as to air the entire series on ABC. Who knows? So just have to wait and see specifically what they do. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a crawl.
No, I definitely agree. That's the easiest way to catch up. Obviously, it's going to be really interesting because, like you said, they have to market they're going to have to market it a little differently than they normally would, just because they're trying to entice people to at least come to the movie that may not have watched the series. So yeah, I like your idea of them showing either season 1 or whatever on, or at least a few episodes on like ABC or something like that. But also, this is going to be a huge opportunity for them to really drive home the whole idea of getting kids to want to go because of Grogu, which we all know is going to happen. There'll be the commercials, and you'll see Grogu. Maybe literally they do a sponsorship, or you get a deal with, say, KFC or McDonald's or something, and he's literally, force pulling chicken nuggies to his hand. Like the whole thing that everybody always, the memes we all see about. So now here's their chance to really market it. I do feel like this is going to be the movie itself is going to be interesting, because even though we don't know the story yet, I feel like this is a really good opportunity to finally introduce, find a way of dragging Din and Grogu back into it, but also setting up what is good. I would hope for Filoni's movie would be more of like an Empire Strikes Back-esque type movie where the big bad, does a lot of damage. They win in some shape or form. I think what you can do with the Ahsoka series is her journey back, while on top of stopping Balin from whatever he's trying to do. But if they utilize the world between worlds, she can catch glimpses of what's going on while she's trapped on the other side of the galaxy, which would kind of add to the stress, the anxiety of her trying to get back as soon as she possibly can to be able to help everybody, because maybe she learned some things in season 2 that are going to help them, and she doesn't appear until the second movie. So there's a lot they can play with here that can really shape it up into quite the story that would fit 3 movies easily.
Uh-oh, Johnny's in trouble. That's definitely Johnny. I know that area too well.
No. It's just the weather is just bad enough that I've been listening to sirens all day.
You finally killed George, didn't you?
I'm not the one that's likely to do that. You are.
Son of a bitch. The truth is
I still think there's a 90% chance you moved to the woods so you could bury the body.
What a twist.
Man, guilty.
All right, so that's all we got for this for now. But you guys have been pretty active here in the live chat tonight, so let's throw it out there. You guys throwing some questions out in the chat. Our producer's going to put them up on the screen, and we'll knock them off one by one by one.
Some of them are just comments, but
questions, comments, they're all fun. We'll get to
by
them
the way,
anyway.
thanks for coming out, guys. Like, it's first live episode for us for the year. We had all noticed that the audience numbers were getting better towards the end of last year. It was really popping for the New Hope watch along, which I was a little bit surprised for because we're not really we weren't pushing the content too hard, right? So thank you for finding the show, and we got a lot in store for you.
All right, first question comment from tonight's live chat. Dustin says, Mando Season 3 was good, but felt more like a Bo-Katan series, which is fine. Love that character, but I missed the feeling from Seasons 1 and 2 and how fresh and removed it felt from the sequel trilogy.
I don't think Johnny's seen 3 yet. I got to say, I 100% agree with Dustin. Now, there are some logistical reasons why it felt like a Bo-Katan series at times, and a lot of that has to do with Pedro Pascal. And he shared the announcement today, but I mean, that could just mean he's doing the voice. And, we'll see what happens. But as far as I know, something was announced on The Last of Us. I still haven't seen season 1, but it might free up some of his availability this year to.
Well, if they stick to. Based on the character introduction, yeah, he might have some free time.
Okay,
just a little bit.
So if that does happen, great. Fantastic. Because frankly, I think you need to see the guy's face in a motion picture film.
You have to.
This isn't your Disney Plus series, and if you're not going to see his face, then the motion picture film needs to be the piece of content you kill this guy off in. He wasn't meant to be a guy that kept his helmet on all the time. He just wasn't. It was part of the initial story, but you have, again, non-story things becoming a factor in on-screen entertainment, which is frustrating. But thanks for the comment, Dustin. Sorry, Johnny, did you get your 2 cents in there?
No, I mean, I think he said everything right, but that's just the way. That's sort of the way the Disney Plus series have gone. They're supposed to be one thing, but they become something else. I mean, the Book of Boba Fett was 2 episodes of Boba Fett. It's just the way things have been going with the way they've been pushing out content and their scheduling. All right, Kenny Crayley, longtime viewer. Very excited for the Mando film and Ahsoka Season 2. I like the show so far. We all did. That's why we did it. We did the shows. If you watch those reviews, we all loved it universally on this panel. Anyway, loved it. Dustin back again. Now we are getting into the moments right before the sequel trilogy and would have rather explored other areas of the galaxy and stayed away from those connections.
Hey, the second they did that Shadows of the Sith book, I knew that they were going to continue to try to fill in the gap between the 2 trilogies to try to make it make a little more sense. And, I'll give Disney this. This is what George used to do. So I can't really hate on them for that. What about you, Randy?
Honestly, I think there's no guarantees, right? That this is going to be anywhere near any of the planets we've really visited in the sequel trilogy. So, but then again, you never know. I'm just happy I'm happy to get new content, but also as long as the story's good and it makes sense, as long as the connections make sense, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. I think now if you're just throwing a name out there for the sake of throwing a name out there, that's a different story. And you're just trying to see if it sticks to the wall. And that's, I don't think Filoni's going to allow something like that to happen. If they're going to try to connect all this stuff, if they're going to try to give that just all around feel that it's just one gigantic timeline, he's going to do his due diligence to make sure everything works just right. So I don't think we're going to have any problems with that.
I mean, I think you sort of had to, you have to fill in the gap to some degree because, you go from the end of Return of the Jedi and you go straight into Episode 7. But there's a lot of time in between those two things, and it's a very different galaxy from one to the next. So you have to fill in some of those holes. You have to do some sort of expansion on what happened in the major events in that, and we knew they were going to continue doing that. I mean, we've seen it not just in books, comics, and what have you, but even like the Battlefront 2 campaign, filled in some of those plot holes and some of those elements, and started sort of fleshing out the in between. So you have to, and then of course you get to episode 9, which completely sort of establishes this eternal empire, and it just you have to fill in some of these gaps and fill some of those answers and explain some of these things, and this is the way they're doing it. And a lot of these sort of things that we're dealing with were, with the exception of the Mandalorian story, which was created out of whole cloth from Filoni and Favreau, a lot of what's occurred in this interim is picking up breadcrumbs that Filoni left throughout the animated series. So these are all things that we sort of had allusions to, or things that we can pick up on and carry on these stories from past events that help us explain what happens in between, and weaving them together into this tapestry of time in between 6 and 7 is fun. And we're doing it for the most part without the big 3.
Yeah, not much longer, probably. I have a theory on that, though.
Well, we'll have lots of time for theories. Dustin, again, wants an interesting, well-written story, regardless whether the lead is male, female, or directed by whoever. I don't care, as long as it is well-written and care goes into it. Yeah.
There you go.
That was worthy of horns, sir. Worthy of horns. Kenny says women like Marsha Lucas, Bryce Dallas Howard, etc. have shaped Star Wars to what it is as writers and directed a few episodes. Yeah, just a kind of a silly comment.
I think it's one of those things that in the moment when talking about is referencing film. Like, it's cinematic. But you didn't add that part, which allows this giant void of add your own context that has not helped.
George says the comments that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy made about making men feel uncomfortable were taken out of context.
Well, they weren't, but they were in context of what she was talking about.
They're
based on the project in question, which should make men feel uncomfortable because it is a topic that should make humanity uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it should also be noted there's people just taking that portion and saying, well, this is it. No, she made recent comments about the what we led the show off with. About it's about time a female, shaped stories in these galaxies. It's just like it was a dumb comment. So it's not just the one, George. It's the fact that it was multiple in a very short, amount of time about an already divisive time period to do another film in. It's a problem. Hopefully everything goes well, because I want to see the movie. I want to see what a new Jedi Order would be with Rey. But I don't want all the fucking bullshit, on the side. I want to talk about, well, they're going to shoot it partly in IMAX or something, stuff like that, That's what I want to talk about. This is essentially what Mando Season 4 was going to be. Or, well, I don't even know if I want to say that anymore, but it is replacing Mando Season 4, for sure.
I mean, I think for the most part, the story will probably stay the same to a degree. Like, I don't think they're going to completely upend the story just because you're moving from one media platform to another.
I think it gives them a chance now, though, that they have the extra time, because I don't think they'll shoot till later this year, would be my guess. now that they have the extra time, you can add more, of an effect to what happened at the end of Ahsoka into this project early on, especially if it's leading into the Filoni movie. And Filoni is also producing this one, so.
I mean, it's perfect time to just kind of sit down, be like, okay, this was our idea for season 4. Now let's, take the episodic thing out. Let's get it set for film, and let's take our time with it. Make sure the script is tight, the characters are well written, the story is well written, and it just perfectly and seamlessly sets up Filoni's movie for after this. Because, again, what do we all want as Star Wars fans? We want a good story with great characters, and just to have it leave us with that feeling of not even just nostalgia, but just that warm feeling, fuzzy feeling you get from watching a good Star Wars movie. I don't know about you guys, but every time I watch Empire Strikes Back, man, I get that warm and fuzzy feeling from just watching such an amazing movie. And I really, really want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and that they're really going to try as hard as they can to just make this one of the better movies under Disney, just because it's time. We need this. We need, in Filoni we trust. Okay, this is something we need.
Yeah, I mean, you said it pretty well there, Randy.
I don't have anything to add.
I thought we did. I thought there were still some more comments in the chat.
Listen, having a half-broken mouse is a pain in the ass. If people want to continue to comment and send their thoughts out there, please feel free to do so. Kenny, we're going to stick to Star Wars in this chat, man. But if you want to pose that question tomorrow night, and welcome to the Geek Side, I'd be glad to get to it. And I'll put this one up on screen here, and then we'll move on.
I'll answer that. Whichever one George fucked with less.
The original will always hold a special place in my heart, since that's what I grew up with. I mean, I got to see Return of the Jedi when it came out in theaters, so I had those VHS tapes for all 3, and I wore them out, watched it all the time. So that is always going to have a special place in my heart. Do I like some of the stuff from special editions? Of course, but it doesn't compare to just that feeling when you're a kid getting to watch it for the first time as it was actually presented to you.
Special editions for me. I think when you specifically, not going too far into whatever the newest updated edition is, but like 97, when they did the big re-releases in 97, I thought that they were done about as good as you possibly could have asked them to be done for the 20-year anniversary. And I really, really enjoyed what they did with them. The technical advances showed that it made the Death Star battle better. It made Bespin better. It significantly improved Return of the Jedi. The moment in A New Hope that we seen just a couple weeks ago when we were watching it, where Han and Chewie chase the stormtroopers, they chase them into a room where there's only a few. Well, in 97, they chased them into a room where there's like 100, which makes a little more sense. Little stuff like that. Going through Tatooine, I didn't think anything that they added there was like too jarring. I thought everything they did was good, so I enjoyed it. Minus obviously the Han not shooting first anymore, but that's just not cool. But yeah, and not to mention I'm a sucker for the special edition posters. Like I know people go on about Bikini Leia in Return of the Jedi, and I had it up on my wall, but I don't think there is better art for Star Wars than the 3 special edition posters we got.
I mean, that's just Struzan at his best. All right. Let's move on. Like I said, we have lots of news today. Obviously, in and amongst all of the Mando news today, we did get seeming confirmation that season 2 of Ahsoka is in development. I don't think anyone here is particularly shocked by this news, but yeah, it's now officially confirmed to be in development. Any thoughts on that?
They're playing coy with it for a bit. Even Filoni recently, which makes me think that this announcement wasn't supposed to come out now and was supposed to be still held off a little bit. But why not release it now? Because you take attention away from the nonsense that happened last week, and you also take attention away from the Jonathan Majors thing. So for Lucasfilm and Disney, it made sense to do it now in terms of a distraction. They have a history of doing this too. Person X has been fired from whatever project, but don't worry because here's Benioff and Weiss. Oh, Benioff and Weiss have been fired, but don't worry, we have this or that. Like it's a theme, sadly, with Kathleen Kennedy's tenure, whether you like her or not. This is definitely a theme, for better or for worse. Ahsoka getting to season 2 had to happen. Like we all seen where season 1 ended. So my question is, if Ahsoka season 2 is in early development, that means, in my opinion, you're looking at shooting that thing sometime later next year. Not early next year, later next year, because you cannot rush the writing process, in my opinion. But you're also writing the movie for the Filoniverse, which is supposed to come after Ahsoka season 2. So you're just trying to figure out when all this fits in. And I've come to the conclusion, fellas, that I believe that the Filoniverse movie is going to get delayed to 2027. I think their hope is to do the Rey movie now as the second movie in 2026, which gives you the, because we know now that the Mando one's going to be first. You get that movie in May, you get the Rey movie, and what's that set you up for 2027? It sets you up for the Mandoverse movie, which has already been rumored to possibly include some pretty big legacy characters, which some of them probably the original 3, whether it's deep fake or new people playing them. It's the 50-year anniversary of Star Wars. So to do the big Filoni movie that he's actually directing, and if it's going to feature some of those characters, honestly, just from a marketing perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And I don't want to see it delayed. I would like it when I'm still, somewhat, capable here with my health and shit. But yeah, 2027, 50 years. Like you'd be nuts to not release a movie in 2027, but to also have one that has significant tiebacks to where it all started. It just makes too much sense, especially if Luke Skywalker's going to be in it. Whether Han's in it or not, or Leia's in it or not, who knows? But I think there's a strong possibility Luke's in it. Maybe not in the first one, but I just think you got to do it. Back it up a year. Release it then. That's if you can get the Rey movie out for 2026. But also, you got to remember that Ahsoka season 2 would have to come out before Filoni's second movie. So now we're running into some issues here. How do you balance that out? I don't know. They're even pushing it to 2027. They're on a tight time schedule because they still have to. You assume they haven't completely written whatever this new project's going to be. This new Mando movie. So you're going to go through all the development there. You're going to film this year, release more than likely in the spring of 2026, and then you still have Ahsoka 2. And you have Filoni's Mandoverse movie, and then a potential third movie on top of it. And we're not even talking about the Rey movie or the Mangold movie. It also makes me think that the Sean Levy movie is the third movie in these movies. But we'll see what happens there. Sorry, long rambling there, guys. Just your thoughts, because again, with Star Wars, I hate when there's so much on the table. I firmly believe this is the first project I can say where I would bet a lot of money that it's definitely coming out simply because of the guys that are putting it out. and yet at the same time, it just feels like there's so much up in the air still.
I mean, there is and isn't, I guess, at the same time. So I think there's a lot of possibilities in direction, but there's not quite as many unfettered balloons as there were previously. I think that for the most part, everything that is currently announced and in production is things we're going to see. On the schedule that they've been promising, I doubt that. But I think we're going to get. I don't think we're going to get the lost projects like the Rogue Squadrons and the Rangers of the New Republic. All of those sorts of things. The banning off of Weiss. We could keep going on projects that have been canceled in the Disney era. I think we're past that for the most part now. And I think that we're finally at a state where things aren't getting announced without having at least a direction in place.
I don't know. I think this is going to be, like Sean said, they're in a tight window right now. They've announced a lot, and that's a lot to live up to. It's a lot of work, unless Favreau had a script ready, or Filoni had already been working on Ahsoka season 2 and had that script almost done. That's for the entire series. For that series is done, or he's since the movie was announced, he was working on the script for the movie. There's a lot of things that are in play here that it's possible that maybe a lot of the stuff is already written. It's just going over it, getting the quality control, starting to set up casting for some of the stuff for the people that aren't assured to be in it. I don't know. I like the idea of for the 50th anniversary having the OG3 in it, and that would be absolutely amazing. I think at this point, let's go ahead and recast them. We don't need the CG. We don't need deep fakes. Nothing like that. Let's just go ahead. If push comes to shove, get Alden Ehrenreich back to do Han.
Yeah,
it's not like he's never played the role before. Plus, it would actually give him a chance to show the difference. Show his acting chops and just show how he can be kind of like a curmudgeonly Harrison Ford type in a newer movie. It's so you could even use I don't remember if they did that before, but you could use Billy Lord for Leia if you really wanted to. And you could always go for the fanboy pick in terms of everybody's like, Sebastian Stan's like, yes, we got to get him for Luke, but it's not necessary.
I think it'll be someone else if they do that personally.
Right. But I'm just saying it's not necessary to just pick him, but it's just, let's go. Let's take our time. We don't have to rush to the finish line. We have an idea. We have a goal. Let's put out high quality, and in the end, we'll throw in some fan service to kind of tie everything back together. But in the end, it's going to be a hell of a journey, a hell of a ride. And it's exciting. It's definitely exciting. I really hope that if they do, with the Rey movie, I hope that sticks the landing and continue and helps branch off a new path for Rey and her Jedi Order. So I think that'd be actually really cool. Obviously, it just seems like there's just so many logs on the fire that could easily just turn out into something amazing. And around it, it's just, I think with the success of Ahsoka, the success of The Mandalorian, this kind of this makes sense for the direction they're going. The characters they've created in those series have been very well received, and people are genuinely excited for them. So, yeah, even though it's a tight window, let's go for it. Let's shoot for the stars here, as they say. Let's go. I'm excited.
It also sounds like when I was listening to Make the Star Wars show today, that their belief is, and I've heard Bestman Bulletin say the same. Actually, he was on the show today. I strongly encourage anybody, if you're looking for a Star Wars podcast to listen to that dives into a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. Today's episode they did was phenomenal, and it sounds like Star Wars, like their goal, Lucasfilm and Disney, is that they believe in the Acolyte so heavily that the Acolyte will end up becoming the focus of Star Wars on Disney Plus. Not that they won't do other things, they will, but that right now their goal is, you'll get Star Wars The Acolyte, and then you'll get one other thing moving forward. I think, they want to bring the Mandoverse to a close so they can move forward into different stories. And, I get that, at least get it off Disney Plus if that's their goal, and allow for other content on the small screen and allow the big screen to do the big screen stuff.
I mean, it makes sense to sort of bring like the Mando. I hate the Mandoverse as a title. Like it's.
I'll take it over the Mandalorian and Grogu.
Oh, well, yes, so lie, of course. But I just mean more of I hate the verse as a whole. Like I hate when fan bases do. It's the same as like couple names. I hate that crap. Stop doing that. Just on spec, stop doing that, and stop naming universes after the first series in the universe. Like Arrowverse. I hate those titles. I hate those names. Like,
I mean, wouldn't it be like Smallville verse, since they canonized that? I guess it'd be even further than that because they canonized the Flash.
Well, I mean, if we're going that far, then it's the Superman and Lois verse.
Oh, did they end up being in it too?
I think one of them was, or they mentioned them in it, I think.
They're in Smallville, but as different characters.
Well, I know that Dean and I'm drawing a blank on her name now.
Terry Hatcher.
Yes. And Terry were in Smallville, but I think they mentioned them in the Crisis.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, they mentioned all the others.
So. That they did.
I guess it would actually be the Batman verse, because like the Batman serial comics or serial films from the 1920s were first. So,
I mean, I'm excited, man. I think if they can make Acolyte be like the centerpiece of Disney Plus, then like, hey, you get your Game of Thrones HBO bit there. I mean, obviously, HBO has a ton of hits, but Game of Thrones was really it for a while, being the key one, and now with House of the Dragon and The Last of Us, they're sitting pretty again. I think
it's HBO. There's always one. They've had one since like 98. I mean, The Sopranos was the first one.
I'd argue Disney Plus doesn't. Like, yeah, I know they've had all these Marvel series and Star Wars series, but I would also argue, I mean, when The Mandalorian first came out, I would say, yeah, okay, they have their one in The Mandalorian, even for season 2. But then season 3, there, creative differences and the issues with Pedro Pascal. And for me, it's a significant step down creatively than the previous 2 seasons. It kind of made it a little ordinary for me. And same with the Marvel stuff. Like, I don't know a single Marvel series where I'd go, okay, well, that's continuously going to be airing several seasons, and this is what's going to keep bring me back. I haven't seen Loki season 2 yet.
Loki is that for Disney Plus, at least
in
my opinion.
I just argue they don't have that. Even Loki, when you look at the numbers, Loki and the Star Wars series, like they do good, but we're not doing the numbers that some of those other shows we just mentioned are doing.
Well, I mean, they're different. It's different platforms, different medias, right? They don't have the TV. HBO is still at its core a television network. So they have traditional ratings that they can rely on, whereas streaming ratings are garbage because they're self-reported.
I'm not just talking about ratings, though. I'm just talking about fan interest in general, right? Like, I would argue you can't compare anything that Star Wars has done post The Rise of Skywalker to what the popularity was heading into any of the Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, The Force Awakens. I don't think we're at that level with these projects, and I hope we get there. and I'm hopeful for the Acolyte. Like we're talking about the Acolyte being compared to things like what is it, the Handmaiden's Tale or whatever, and Game of Thrones and some other things. So like we'll see what happens there. I'll believe it when I see it. You know.
I think a large portion of why the Mandalorian suffers so much is a secondary character stole the world. I don't think this was ever meant to be the Grogu story, and I'd argue that Grogu has become the linchpin character to this universe. So, if anything, it's the Grogu-verse, let's be honest. But it's one of those things where the secondary character came out, stole the world, and became, he stole the zeitgeist. Basically, he became the thing for a year. There were Grogu. You were hearing Grogu mentions on late night television, on cable. General like sitcoms brought up the character. So he stole the spotlight, and they have sort of been trying to work around that in a less than optimal way, I think.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, as an example, I remember, watching Mando season 1, and my wife flipping her shit the moment she saw Grogu for the first time, because it was just, and that was the same reaction that everybody gave. Because I mean, there was like, wait, there's no merchandise yet. Disney missing a huge opportunity there, but they pushed as much out as they could. But you're right. I think they were really trying to give you just, Favreau really was just giving you a story about what a Mandalorian did during that time period. And it blew up. It became something so much more. And it took pop culture by storm. And you're right. Once everybody and their brothers started talking about Grogu, whether it was late night TV, sitcoms making comments, or whether it's The Simpsons or Family Guy doing in jokes about that stuff, it's you've made it when. Mm-hmm. But you're right. I think also another thing is because of the popularity of Grogu and just the demand for more. I think even though I think Favreau had season 2 ready to go, I think when it came to season 3, there was just so much demand for it that they rushed it. They really didn't take their time with it like they did with seasons 1 and 2. And of course, season 1 was slow to start, but once you got midway, it was go, go, go. It was great the rest of the way.
What, you mean having to steal half a season of the Book of Boba Fett wasn't always the plan?
I highly doubt that that's really what they wanted to do. And but you at least you got some, I wouldn't say classics, but the whole idea of ride it like a bantha, that was actually pretty entertaining for a while. But I don't know, I felt like there was more there they could have done with Boba Fett. Which they didn't do. The whole idea, and I don't know about you, but I don't see Cad Bane being toast. I'm pretty sure he's still out there, but I don't think Filoni's just going to let them kill off one of his creations that easily. I don't know. I just feel like some of the stuff has been rushed. We saw that with Obi-Wan, the production value. Like it was rushed.
That they had their Game of Thrones with that series. There's a reason why the viewership for Kenobi is through the roof in the earlier episodes, is because people were stoked for it. Johnny and I were staying up till fucking 3:00 in the morning to start it.
Yeah, I still can't believe we decided to do reviews at 3:00 in the morning for that show.
That was the right show to do it for, even with the cheap production value.
It's not so much the show that I take issue with, the staying up to review things at 3:00 in the morning. It's the I'm not as young as I used to be thing.
And then of course you have a show like Andor, which, I mean, award season loved that show, and it was a great story. It got you hooked, even though a little slow to start. But haven't you noticed that it seems like shows that have a little slow to start, but then they start picking up, and by that time you're near the end of it, the end of that season, you're so engrossed in the characters and so ready for season 2 that you don't even realize that you were not exactly huge on the first half or first third of the season. You just remember all the greatness that came after.
That's
think that-
assuming you didn't take the first exit after those first couple episodes.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. We're gonna have to see if we can get Johnny back onto that show. No, I'm serious. I think that the back. I know some of the content that he likes and some of the movies that we've seen that he does like, and I think it becomes that absolutely. But because it's such a fresh show and it's so different than anything we've ever gotten, that couple of episodes, like episode 3, I think picks up a bit. But those first couple of episodes, like, not that they're bad, but I understand when you're getting into a 12 episode series where the episodes are anywhere from half an hour to 50 minutes long, and that some of it's going to move slow. You sit there and go, okay, do I want to keep doing this week over week over week over week and not get the payoff that I deserve for my investment in time? 100% get it, because I've been burned by that before. 100% by shows. Thankfully, Andor didn't do that. I had to believe that the slow burn was going to pay off, and it did. I think anyone who hasn't watched that through to the end, I don't think they're crazy. I understand why they might have, given up on it, but it really is, in my opinion, in terms of like all categories, and this includes production quality, the best Star Wars TV series that's been filmed. I think Ahsoka's behind it considerably in production quality, but I don't think anything they've done is anywhere close to the scale of Andor.
I mean, like I've said, I'm sure I'll watch it, but once season 2 kicks around. But
early 2025 by the sounds of it.
It's one of those things that I wasn't excited going into it, and by the end of the first couple episodes, I was just like, nah, dog. I sat through Attack of the Clones once. I'm not doing it again.
Wow. Damn. Trust me, I was kind of on the fence too. So I'm like, do I really need to know more about a character who I know is going to die anyway? But then once I got around to it and just sat down and watched it, I was like, okay, I got to see his beginnings and his motivations and things like that, and it was really well done. So he's gonna I have a feeling it's gonna be one of those characters that I'm really gonna enjoy even more after season 2, and it's gonna bum me out that much more when I watch Rogue One, because I'm like, damn it, I feel like we wasted this character. Now they've built him up so much. But the cool thing with the show is it shows you things with the Empire and the Rebels you never get to see in the movies. Not really. You get to see that ugly, gritty side of things that they did and chose to do for both sides, not just the one. And I think that really plays well into it and really kind of helped build that show up even more.
Well, we will have to wait and see. I think for the most part, we've at different interjointed points here. We've covered pretty much the upcoming release slates. I don't think there's anything we haven't at least touched on.
I think the only things that I would add is Star Wars Outlaws. Sounds like all signs from every direction are pointing to Q4 this year for a release. So
don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up.
That's where I'm at with it too. Don't, please, for the love of God, don't do it. Don't fuck it up. No! Wrong show. Still need that Vader clip of him doing the no. So that's the update there. Apparently, we might have some news soon on Star Wars Eclipse. So that would be exciting. Johnny, you're a big Quantic. Sorry, thought I heard something. You're a big Quantic Break guy. Is that what it's called, right? Quantic Break? No,
Quantic Dreams.
Quantic Dream. They've done obviously Heavy Rain, Detroit Becoming Human. I forget there was another big one they did.
Beyond Two Souls.
Early ones. Yeah. So, your thoughts just very briefly on them doing a Star Wars game, and how patient do we need to be, knowing that it's been in development for a couple of years now, but they made it very clear that unlike their other games, they wanted a more hands-on combat system for it, which is difficult in that type of game.
Yeah, it's I'm an enjoyer of their content. I don't know. I'm still torn, even when it was announced. Like right off the rip, the idea sounds amazing on principle because they do really good stories. Heavy Rain was a story that was really good. I mean, the fact somebody hasn't optioned it into a film.
It's about 37 different stories by the time you play through.
But I mean, the fact that it hasn't been like optioned off into a film yet is shocking to me still. Detroit was confusing as fuck, but in a good way. It questions your sanity, it questions your intelligence, it questions your humanity at different points. It's a great game, it's a great story. So I'm excited for the idea of them doing a Star Wars game, but I don't know how comfortable I am with them putting such an emphasis on things that aren't typically a big part of their games. Adding to their combat system, and I like
That's where the holdup is right now too during the production. So
it's one of those things where, as nice of an idea of it is, I think I would have just as much preferred a Star Wars experience in sort of their traditional style without focusing on the combat. You can still have good good content, good emotions with their system as currently exists. Like they still had sort of good pseudo combat scenes.
I think they want you to be able to wield a lightsaber in an appropriate fashion, being the era that it's set in, the type of story that it is, which makes sense. But I still think there's a way to do that and still have it be closer to the gameplay style of a Heavy Rain or even of the Telltale games, and instead
it just needs to make the combat more meaningful. Like you don't need 100,000 combat scenes like you do in like a traditional action game. Like, we're not talking about the Jedi Outcast series. We're not talking about the Jedi Survival or any of those types of games where you need consistent combat to keep you enthralled. Having a story where the combat is meaningful when it happens it is much better. Like I like the idea of sort of a Quantic Dream style lightsaber battle where each action and reaction leads to a different branching path within the fight. So each fight in and of itself could have hundreds of different outcomes and ways that the story plays out through the future, which is something that they are so good at doing, weaving in these little things into the overarching story, that I would have loved that. Even if it's just as simple of a dodge left, parry right, and each choice and decision plays out in such a way that while you're not actively doing it, you're still, it's your brain versus the game, which is, I think, what at its core I want, because a controller in my hand, no matter how good the fight scene is, I'm not as invested as you can get in some of those story, it goes back to the Telltale experience. You get invested in those stories, and when the action happens, you feel invested in it because you're invested in everything that's going on. I feel more investment in those type of action sequences than I do in mow down 100 stormtroopers or this random boss battle that I have to do this certain way that's always the same.
The real frustrating thing here is when you take the problem that this game's having, which is incorporating the new combat system that they're trying to have to be a little more hands-on, and then you take the issues that the Knights of the Old Republic remake has apparently had, where they wanted something more cinematic based than RPG based, and yet somehow that wasn't clearly communicated till well into production of the game, which is just embarrassing. Like, it's two very similar issues now with two different games, and two games that frankly I want more than any other game that they've announced, including Star Wars Outlaws. So, I want the Quantic Dream Star Wars game. I want the Star Wars game where we are the writer, we are the director, like the Quarry even. We are shaping our Star Wars story with the characters and the setting that they provide. And they're doing it in an era that's fairly open where you're going to be able to play that game over and over and over again. The problem is they're trying to put this combat system into it. In my opinion, wasn't needed. Could have done more detective-based story. And now you're looking at a game that we should be getting excited for to come out, next year. What, 2026, 2027, more than likely at this point? It's a little frustrating. I want them to do it right, but I feel like story and character development should always come first. And I'm not saying it hasn't in this regard, but I feel like priorities are a little out of whack, and I just hope for the best for the game because it's the one I was the most excited for.
See, one of the things that I'm really curious about is, I don't know if you guys ever played it, but one of their first games they did was called Indigo Prophecy. And I remember all the QTEs, the quick time events for the combat and whatnot. And I know that that's been a pretty big of a mainstay for them. But one of the things I always remembered about that game was the character development. And I will say also another thing is, and I hope that they do incorporate this into Eclipse, is a timer for when to make your decision. Don't sit there and let someone just mull it over. It's like, oh, you got a few seconds, you need to make a choice. Hopefully it's the right one. And that was one of the things I've always enjoyed about their games is they don't let you slow down. They keep that intensity, that anxiety driven, sometimes you get so emotionally involved with your character because they've done such a good job writing it, and then you realize, oh shit, I just made the wrong decision, and I just got my character killed. Like, and I hope they do that with Eclipse too, because I remember playing Detroit Become Human, and I'll be damned if I didn't kill off the freaking first character I see right off the bat. I'm going, wait, he's dead. Damn it, like. Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait a second. I thought I was doing, and I guess I wasn't doing the right thing.
We rain with the cop, son of a bitch.
But, and the thing is, the story went on. It kept going, and I'm just like, well, shit. Now I got to play through it again with different choices, and that's one of the great things about them is replayability, making those different choices and wondering, and those what ifs. You get to go back and revisit the what ifs. But the combat system in a story-driven game, it's nothing new, but if you're not good at it, there's no, why reinvent the wheel? Why go and try to create something out of nothing when it's not what you're known for? It doesn't make any sense to me. But here's the thing. When it finally does drop, we could just be like, holy shit, they did it. They actually made it work. This actually adds to the game. It adds to the story. It actually makes me feel like I'm actually doing something as a Jedi, and maybe they have different characters you can start with. Maybe you have the smuggler or, the bounty hunter or just being able to go and craft stories around those types of characters, or maybe not. Who knows? I just, as long as it's done well and done right, I'm willing to swallow a little humble pie if it turns out to be an amazing game.
Only time will tell, I suppose. Is it supposed to be in tonight's notes or tomorrow's notes?
What's that?
The Indiana Jones footage?
No, I mean, it's part of Lucasfilm. It's Lucasfilm games, so that's probably not something I'd bring up in tomorrow's show. But yeah, Indiana Jones footage of a new game that's coming out. I believe it's January 18th or 19th. The footage debuts. I got to be honest though, the idea that they sunk a bunch of money into an Indiana Jones game in 2024 is could have been money better spent elsewhere on a Star Wars IP.
I mean, I don't know. Wait and see, I guess. All right. Oh, choking on air over here all of a sudden. All right, that's gonna do it for the HoloNet this week. Before we get to the game of the week, we can safely tell you, if you've watched this show long enough, trivia is the thing we do. And the next trivia matchup is scheduled for January 23rd. If you tune in next week, you'll find out who will be competing. Well, but that's going to bring us to the final segment of the week. That is this week's Game of the Week. And this week it was chosen by me, which if you watched our second to last show of 2023, you'll know that I was the most recent choice or chooser of games, which took us a few minutes to figure out in production this afternoon because we'd all sort of forgotten about that. This week's game of the week I chose was Star Wars Empire at War. It was the PC real-time strategy game, and oh boy, was it amazing. I loved it. And the expansion pack that came out shortly there afterwards, well, I chose it, so I'll tell you why I chose it. It's a real-time strategy Star Wars game. It's I almost want to say enough said right there, but it's in an era of games dominated by civilization and empire, not empire war, total war, and Command and Conquer, and so many amazing RTS games in and around that time period that are still coming out. The PC is still rife with real-time strategy games, especially in and around the World War II era. Those are some of the best games out there for that era, I think, or RTS games. But this was Star Wars in an RTS, and it's still alive and kicking. Steam, you still have multiplayer there, and Workshop, still content being put out by fans all the time.
Hang on. There's still multiplayer?
I'm pretty sure it's still active on Steam.
Because if there's still multiplayer, we might have to do something with that on a live stream. That might be too much to resist.
Well, we'll get into it. I think it was still there last time. I haven't installed it in a few years, so I don't know if it's still active. But it's a fun game. The campaign is fun. I like the micromanagement of the RTS assets and controlling the combat on the ground. It's such a fun game. I personally love RTS games. They are arguably my favorite genre of gaming. So what about you guys? When was the first time you remember playing Empire at War?
It was at Heads Up Gaming. I'm not a big RTS guy. Heads Up Gaming was a place where Johnny and I lived. If you didn't have, high-end PC, you could go play high-end PC games there and play on their servers and do multiplayer games and shit. And Empire War was one of the games that was there. And I got to say, I really liked it. I can't say I was particularly very good at it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like if you're a Star Wars geek who loves the big battles, whether it's aerial, space, or on ground, and you want to be the guy that's in charge of your military forces, in my opinion, Star Wars hasn't done anything remotely close to this level since then. And that's probably why it's so well recognized.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I get to be the black sheep here. I've actually never played this. I'm not huge into RTS. I did play a lot of Command and Conquer with friends, and they would pretty much whoop me. I even played some Warcraft. The only actual experience I have with a Star Wars RTS game is actually Star Wars Battlegrounds, which I actually do own. But I've heard this game is absolutely amazing in terms of the story and and the voice acting is really well done. And obviously, yes, if you love Star Wars battles on a large scale, especially especially vehicular battles, this is definitely a go-to for a lot of people. And I may just have to give it a try since it's still around kicking.
I love it. The campaign was fun as well, but there was just so much great about this game that I loved. It just it's a mid 2000s game at the height of the RTS era. What was not to love? It's Star Wars.
Oh, of course.
Changing graphics.
Hey, now this is 2005.
I was going to say, hey, that looks like Yavin. Oh, right. That's because it's Yavin.
Gee, I wonder why it looks like Yavin.
I mean, the visuals really are impressive for back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vader's looking a little thick in that picture. Not that there's a problem with that.
I'm just going to blame the angle on that one. Everyone looks thick when you're like on the ground looking up at them from behind like that.
Maybe he went on a tauntaun diet. Man, look at that Stormtrooper helmet, fellas. That's as real as it gets. But no, like when you look at the time, like this is, imagine, watching the trailer for this in like 2004. Like this would be pretty remarkable, especially if you're an RTS fan.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an RTS and a Star Wars fan, then like you're set. Oh, that Rancor just ate that guy. Or ate that guy.
Oh, he definitely eated that guy, that's for sure.
He eated him.
He eated him real good.
Yeah, I've been talking to toddlers too much. Speaking of which, this is going to get sidetracked here because I don't know if Johnny and I have talked about this. It was my youngest son's birthday this past weekend. I'm going to take a minute here. Happy belated birthday to Jensen. He's now 4. And we went to, let me ask you, do you remember Kid Zone, Johnny?
Oh, absolutely.
So we went to a place like that. Now, it wasn't quite as big as Kid Zone was back in the day in terms of, because that place was wide. Like there were so many different levels. Not so much.
We were just tiny. I don't know if it was actually that big.
It was a pretty big playground. Like to go to one end to the other, it took a while. Well, we went to a place that's adult friendly to get up there, even for a big guy like me. And Jesse, and Jesse was there, and his kid was there, and we had a game of team tag where Jesse and I started off as it, and 7 or 8 kids took off for their lives on a massive playground structure that's 5 levels high. And let me tell you, I am still sore. So...
We haven't talked about it, but I saw Jade's post about it.
Oh, did you? I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
I spent some time laughing at your expense.
Yeah, it was fun. Hey, it was fun. It was a good time. It was nostalgic. It reminded me of Kid Zone, so I figured I'd bring it up there. The audience is like, get back to fucking Empire at War. We don't care about Kid Zone. Space combat. Here we go. Is Thrawn in the game? I can't remember.
I
thought he was.
If he was, it was in the expansion.
Well, Google is my friend, so let's see if we can figure this out. So apparently, the community created a
It helps
Thrawn's
to not
Revenge
be
mod.
muted there, Chief.
Sorry, Randy, what did you say?
I was saying that apparently, the fan community created a Thrawn's Revenge mod for Empire at War. So he wasn't in the game itself.
Nice. Well, that's a massive missed opportunity. But yeah, I enjoyed what little I got to play of the game. So
It's definitely a fun game. Like I said, it's Star Wars RTS. It was great for what it was. Like, you didn't play it expecting earth-shattering graphics. You didn't play any RTS game for earth-shattering graphics. They didn't exist at the time, and they certainly didn't exist inside of an RTS. I mean, even if you look at like Civ 6, the most recent game, it still looks graphically like a game from 10 years ago. So it's not... this isn't exactly a genre for graphics. But it was fun. The story, the campaign was fun. The combat in and of itself was fun. And being able to control and attempt to outthink and outflank your opponents was fun.
any further? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Randy.
I was gonna say, I think the reason I was never really good at these games is I was like all about farming and getting my technology and stuff up and trying to upgrade everything, and that's where I always got stuck. And next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I'm getting bombed. I don't have anti-air stuff. Son of a bitch. And yeah.
So you're that guy who's you're that guy who plays Civ and has archers just scouting around while you worry about your town happiness, and all of a sudden somebody rides up with a bunch of Abrams tanks.
Yeah, I get lost in the sauce. And yeah, I don't really go on the offensive a whole lot because I'm too busy trying to build everything up.
I subscribe to the angry Dalai Lama style of play. I'm great until you piss me off, and then I will drop a nuke on your head. Stay on my good side. I have my finger on the button. I will drop a nuke on you.
This is useful information to know.
Is anybody else have anything they want to add to Empire at War?
I mean, I think for the most part we covered it. There's really a lot to say about it, because it's a game that's so intrinsically unique. Every game is different. Every experience is different. And outside of like covering the campaign, which is just Star Wars, it's the story of the sequel of the original trilogies, not the sequels or the prequels, but the campaign is the campaign. It's the other stuff that made it so much more fun and fulfilling.
Well, I'm going to take the reins then and go next week with the game, and not next week, the week after, because next week is the Empire Watch Along. And we are going to do Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace from the PS1. Cannot wait. I absolutely fucking adored that game.
I played that game quite a bit, so I mean, I do have experience with it. Just been a while.
I think I wanted to use the disc as a frisbee at times, with how frustrating it could be at times. But man, when it was good, especially for back then.
True, I could say the same thing about Jedi Power Battles too, from back in the day.
Oh boy, here we go. Look, I gotta go. I might have it early morning if we're not snowed. This is gonna go another 2 hours. If we're gonna get into Jedi Power Battles and not,
we're not. That's a whole.
No,
different
we're
episode.
not. That'll be a completely episode on its own.
Might need to see what Mondo's doing for that day. So, but
let's be real. Mondo's chomping at the bit for the Super Bombad Racing episode.
Nah, Masters of Terras Kasai.
Take us home, Johnny.
It's going to happen.
All right. Well, it is now time for us to say goodbye. We hope everyone enjoyed tonight's episode. Like I said, we had a lot of news get dropped on us today. We did our best to cover as much of it as we could. in as entertaining a way as we could. We certainly hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to head on down below here. Click the like, click the thumbs up, click the subscribe, click the bell. Do all of those things you can do, and leave a comment to help us defeat the evil algorithm. And of course, you can join us here on the channel tomorrow night, 10 p.m. for another episode of Welcome to the Geek Side, where we talk about everything else. And of course, Monday night, tonight in Haddonfield, our Halloween-centric show. And if you want to contribute on another level, you can head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Fandom Empire, where you can contribute to the show, just like all of those patrons and everyone else that sponsors us over there on Patreon. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. Like I said, it's been a great night. We hope you guys enjoyed it. So, tonight, we say Dos Vidania from Dantooine. We'll see you next week.
Whoa,
What?
whoa. You're already reusing material?
Yes.
It's
a new year.
Dantooine. You can't go back to Dantooine
It's
yet.
a new year, thank you. I am allowed to go back and reuse things.
Wow.
And I might have used Dantooine, but I didn't use Dos Vidania. So
let me tell you something. I was going to be nice to you in a certain announcement that's coming up. That's out the window.
I will reuse planets, but not greetings, because there's a finite number of planets.
It doesn't have to be the specific planet. It could be from Toshi Station.
Oh, but then it doesn't
From
work.
the Yavin Academy.
But then I need something that starts with a Y or a
From
T.
your mom's basement or my mom's basement. My mom doesn't have a basement, but yeah.
Well, that makes even less sense. Why would those be in the Star Wars universe?
Why could? Are you saying that they can't be in the Star Wars universe? Is that what you're saying? Is you fucking hater?
We'll see you next week when we watch one of the greatest films ever made, Empire Strikes Back. We'll see you next week, and may the Force be with you all.